Like to write letters, but when I met Sachin in 1990, there were no mobile phones, so no SMSing, no calls. There were no computers, so no emails. If ever I wanted to call him, and I was studying in Grant Medical College, there were those PCO booths, so I had to get out of this huge 46-acre campus, cross Muhammad Ali Road, go to a PCO at 10 in the night, because that's when the rates, you know, the STD rates or ISD rates were less. And I was convinced that the whole place was full of gundas, but I had to go there all on my own, and then with 100 rupees or whatever I had, and then you call and, you know, you see with every second that you're talking, it's going up, and within 1 minute your money is finished. So the best option was to write a letter. So I used to write, and then you have to anticipate, oh, a letter to reach Sydney is going to take 10 days or 2 weeks. So, you know, you plan ahead and you send the letter to that place, and then he would get my letter, he would read it, then he would send a letter back to me, and that is the way we communicated most of the time.
Yes, breaking news, the Tendulkars worried about the meter ticking on a telephone call.
Hello, I was a Mehta in those days, and I was a medical student. I was not a Tendulkar.
Everyone thinks, Anjali, that here's Sachin Tendulkar and everything nice happens to him and the world lays itself open, there's everything happening. And yet there are stresses, aren't there? There are insecurities, there are stresses. Yours was the shoulder.
Yeah, everyone thinks, you know, to be married to a cricketer, it's such a glamorous life and everything must be wonderful, and, you know, you just have to go attend functions and socialize and, you know, that's it. But in reality, it's really, it's difficult. One is that a lot of the time your husband is not there, so you have to manage everything on your own. Plus, you know, traveling with kids, it was never easy. There were certain times that we could be there, you know, so to plan it with the kids' holidays, to travel, having to look after the kids alone. And always my aim was Sachin shouldn't be disturbed in anything. So I used to take the kids, and even though he would want to help me, it was more important that he gets to sleep properly, because the next day he has to go out and bat. So I remember taking Sarah to New Zealand when she was less than a year old, and with the time difference, she would be awake the whole night and, you know, crying, and then Sachin wanting to sleep, so I had to go out of the room. So it's not as easy and as glamorous as everyone makes it out to be. It's tough. When your husband does badly and India loses, you know, you personally feel that you've done something wrong. You don't want to go out, you don't want to face anyone.
And that these bowlers are terrible people.
Exactly.
Before we end, there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about specifically. And page 80, you'd finally decided to get engaged, and your man didn't have the courage to tell his family?
No. It's not that he didn't have the courage.
He did. Look at him smiling away.
I don't think that was the case. He
told you to go and inform his parents.
He was in New Zealand, and that was when he had just started opening the batting, and he did really well. So he was in a good mood, and one day he called me. I was posted at St. George Hospital, and he said, I think now we should get engaged. So I said, fine. He says, when I come back on my birthday, he was turning 21, he said, we'll get engaged. I said, fine. He said, but there's no time, so you go to my house and you tell my parents. I said, are you sure you want me to go and tell your parents? He said, yeah, you go and tell. So that's why I had to do it. It's not that he didn't have the courage.
Sachin, that was more difficult for you to tell your parents I've met this girl than facing the fastest bowlers in the world?
Indeed it was. Why do you think I planned all this? I mean, I was in New Zealand happily sitting, playing cricket, and I said, you have to do it. I'm ready to get engaged to you whenever you want. You say tomorrow, I'll do it. No problems.
And then rather more sadly, I mean, it's been a happy story before. Let's move on to page 166. And I think Ajit called you to say that Sachin's father's no more. You called her and said you go and break the news to him, right? And you had to drive and break the news to him. Was that the most difficult journey you've ever undertaken?
Indeed it was. Sarah was again a little baby, and in those days we weren't allowed to be the whole time with the team. So I was away. Ajit called me and he said, I don't want anyone else to tell him, you have to go. So then it was late in the night. My mother drove the car. I held Sarah on my lap. We drove all the way back to Leicester. On the way, I called Ajay Jadeja, Robin Singh. I said, you know, make sure that you're there outside Sachin's room. Don't allow anyone to put any calls through. And it was late at night, and you know, when I knocked on the door and he opened the door, he knew that there was something wrong. Otherwise, there's no way during a tournament I would have gone to his room like that in the night. And then, you know, to tell him, it was like, it was like he was about to just collapse in front of me. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do.
You got to do it. I mean, you think that there's only happiness in careers.